My name is Claire Thompson. One Christmas in Austin, my own father told me I wasn't family, right before everyone at the table realized I was the one paying for their lives. What happened next changed every relationship I had. If you've lived through something like this, tell me your story in the comments. I came straight from work to my parents' house in North Austin, blazer still on, badge tucked into my pocket, hands busy setting plates like I'd rehearsed it. My phone kept vibrating against the counter. Slack messages, a calendar reminder I hadn't cleared. I ignored all of it and lined up forks. The TV murmured about holiday travel delays. Someone laughed at something I didn't catch. Robert sat at the head of the table, glass already filled, telling a story he'd told before. Elaine asked if everyone wanted mashed potatoes or rice. No one looked at me when I sat down. "You're never around anymore," Robert said, cutting into the roast. "Work's been busy," I said. "Well, family shows up," he replied. The room kept moving. Plates passed. Someone asked about parking. I reached for water and felt my phone buzz again. "You act like this place is a hotel," Robert continued. "It's December," I said. "That's not an excuse," he said, louder now. "You're not even family." No one said anything. Forks paused, then kept going. Elaine's eyes dropped to her plate. My cousin studied the gravy like it had instructions written on it. For a second, it felt like everyone was waiting for dessert. "Then don't use money from someone who isn't family," I said. The words landed flat. Not dramatic, just placed there. My thumb opened my banking app without thinking. The screen showed scheduled payment, December, pending like it always did. Elaine set her knife down a little too hard. Robert smiled, thin and quick. "Don't be dramatic," he said. The TV kept talking. Someone cleared their throat. I stood, pulled my coat off the chair, and slipped my phone into my pocket. No one stopped me. Elaine didn't look up. Robert reached for more roast. Elaine reached for her napkin and folded it, unfolded it, then folded it again. "Claire, sit," she said. Robert waved her off. "She made her point," he said. "Always does." Someone's chair scraped back. My aunt asked if anyone wanted pie now or later. The question hung there, absurd and practical at the same time. I checked the time on my phone. 10 minutes until the scheduled transfer window closed. My finger hovered, then dropped to my side. Robert leaned back, studying me like I'd just failed a test he'd already graded. "You don't get to threaten people," he said. "I didn't," I said. I explained. Messages started before I reached my apartment. My phone lit up on the passenger seat, one vibration after another, like something breathing. By the time the engine shut off, there were 14 notifications from people who hadn't said my name at dinner. Elaine's text came first. "You embarrassed your father." Then my aunt. "That wasn't appropriate, Claire." Then my cousin. "You didn't have to threaten everyone like that." The word threaten showed up 3 times before midnight. Robert's version had traveled faster than I had. At work the next morning, things looked normal enough to fool anyone who didn't know me. Badge scanned, laptop open, coffee poured. A coworker asked if I'd survived holiday traffic. I said yes and kept typing. The screen filled with numbers and deadlines while my phone kept buzzing against the desk. Elaine called just before lunch. I stepped into an empty conference room and closed the door. "You made your father look small," she said. "I repeated what he said," I replied. "This family doesn't work like that," she said. "You don't bring money into it." "It was already there." "You know what I mean," she said. "You don't bargain with family." Her voice carried the kind of warning usually reserved for children and pets. The call ended without goodbye. When I checked my phone again, Robert had left a voicemail. I didn't open it. By noon, the story had settled into something tidy. I was busy, I was distant. I'd changed since getting a real job. I thought paying for things meant I could control people. No one asked if any of that was true. A colleague leaned over the cubicle wall. "You okay?" "Fine," I said. "Family stuff?" "Something like that." The phone vibrated again. I turned it face down. Maya met me after work at a cafe near the office, the kind of place where people pretended not to listen while absolutely listening. She slid into the chair across from me and looked at my face for half a second. "Do you still have receipts?" she asked. No sympathy, no soft voice, just a question that mattered. "Receipts for what?" "For the stuff you pay for," she said. "Transfers, bills, all of it." The app opened on my phone without hesitation. A list of payments filled the screen, neat and scheduled. Rent, utilities, groceries. I scrolled back, then further, then further. The same amounts, the same dates, stretching back months longer than I'd remembered. "That one was supposed to be temporary," I said. Maya leaned in. "It's on auto," she said. "Temporary doesn't do this." The realization didn't land with drama. It just sat there. The payment for December glowed patiently, cued like it always was. "So you're not family," Maya said, stirring her coffee, "but you're definitely payroll." I smiled once because the alternative would have been louder. Elaine texted while we sat there. "We need to talk this weekend." Another message followed before I answered. Everyone just wants things to calm down. Calm down meant apologize. It always did. At home, the apartment felt smaller than usual. Shoes kicked off, bag dropped. The phone kept vibrating on the counter while I washed my hands. When I checked again, there were missed calls from a number I didn't recognize, and one voicemail from Robert marked urgent. At work the next day, a meeting ran long. Someone joked about holiday stress. Someone else complained about their parents. I kept my eyes on the notes in front of me and nodded when appropriate. Elaine called again that afternoon. "Your father's been up all night," she said. "I'm at work." "So is he," she said, "trying to clean up what you started." The calendar on my screen showed the coming weekend circled in gray. Family meeting. 2 words that usually meant one direction. Below it sat another reminder I hadn't set manually. Scheduled payment, December. Elaine's last message came just before 5. "Please don't make this harder than it has to be." The printer whirred louder than it needed to in my apartment, spitting out page after page onto the kitchen table. Bank statements stacked crookedly, corners curling as they cooled. Midnight had already passed, but the numbers stayed sharp. Dates, amounts, notes, everything lined up too neatly. The email surfaced while I was searching for something else. An old thread buried under receipts and automated alerts with Robert's name in the subject line. Just in case. No exclamation point, no explanation. I opened it. The attachment took a second to load. When it did, the title sat there in plain text. Financial Authorization Form. My name at the top, his name below it. My signature at the bottom, dated during the year Elaine had surgery and everyone kept saying things would stabilize soon. The memory attached itself without effort, Robert sliding the paper across the table. "This just lets me help if something happens," he'd said. "Just in case," I'd repeated. The form spelled it out clearly now. Access, permissions, standing instructions, renewal clause, automatic unless revoked in writing. I hadn't read that part closely enough. I hadn't read it at all. The payments on my screen made more sense. Not help, infrastructure. Robert hadn't been waiting for me to offer. He'd been operating under the assumption that the system would run whether I watched it or not. The smile at dinner, the way he said, "Don't be dramatic," not dismissal, confidence. My phone lit up before I could close the email. "Robert, let's not make this bigger than it needs to be." Another message followed. "Robert, you pull the plug and your mother's the one who feels it." Then a third. "Robert, and your brother's rent is due next week." No threats, just facts, arranged in order. The printer finished its job and went still. I gathered the pages, slid them into a folder, and grabbed my keys. Sleep could wait. So could explanations. The bank lobby was quiet the next morning, fluorescent lights doing their best to flatten everything. A line of 3 people waited ahead of me. One argued softly about overdraft fees. Another filled out a deposit slip twice. When it was my turn, the teller smiled professionally. "How can I help you today?" I need to revoke a financial authorization, I said. Is this a business or family account? Apparently not. Her smile paused, recalibrated. She asked for ID, then for the account number, then for the form I already had printed. Fingers moved across the keyboard, fast and practiced. There's a renewal clause here, she said, turning the screen slightly. I see it. That means we need additional verification before we can suspend access. How long? Usually a few business days. A few business days felt like a long time with rent and utilities involved. Is there a way to flag it? We can note the request, she said, but the authorization stays active until it's processed. She printed something and slid it across the counter. A receipt of intent, not action. Is there anything else, she asked? The phone buzzed in my hand before I could answer. Another message from Robert. Robert, I'm trying to protect everyone here. I pocketed the phone. No, I said. That's it. Outside, the sun bounced off the glass doors hard enough to make me squint. The building reflected a version of me that looked steadier than I felt. The folder pressed flat against my side as I walked toward the parking lot. My phone vibrated again. Missed call. Robert. The screen lit up, then went dark. I unlocked the car and sat there for a moment without starting the engine. The folder landed on the passenger seat, pages rustling slightly as if they were settling into place. Another vibration followed, the same name, the same number. The notification came early Saturday morning before I left my apartment. Balance alert. The number on the screen looked wrong, like a typo someone forgot to fix. I refreshed it, then again. The account that covered rent, utilities, groceries, nearly empty. Not pending, cleared. The bank hadn't frozen anything yet. The authorization was still active. Robert hadn't waited. By the time I pulled into my parents' driveway, the decision had already been made without me. Cars lined the curb. The family meeting Elaine had promised turned out to be more of a gathering. Everyone was there. Robert sat on the couch, shoulders slumped, hands folded like he was holding something fragile. Elaine hovered near the kitchen, moving dishes that didn't need moving. My brother stood by the window, phone in hand, eyes fixed outside. You finally came, Robert said. The folder of statements stayed tucked under my arm as I stepped inside. No one asked how I was. Robert sighed heavily, like he'd been interrupted mid-confession. I didn't want it to happen this way, he said, looking around the room. But I had no choice. Elaine nodded once, still not meeting my eyes. You drained the account, I said. A murmur ran through the room. Robert lifted a hand. I took what was needed, he said. There were debts you don't know about, old ones, people who don't wait. What debts? I asked. He shook his head slowly. This isn't about numbers, he said. It's about families stepping up when it matters. Someone behind me muttered that times were hard for everyone. Another voice said Robert had always done his best. Elaine finally looked at me. You scared him, she said. With what? With threats, she said. With money. My brother shifted his weight and stared at the floor. When I said his name, he didn't look up. I didn't threaten anyone, I said. You walked out, Robert replied. You left us hanging. The folder came open on the coffee table. Pages spread out, neat and numbered. Dates circled. Amounts highlighted. This isn't help, I said. This is access. Robert leaned forward, peering at the papers like they were unfamiliar. You signed it, he said. During a medical crisis, I said. And you renewed it, he said softly. That was when it landed. The clause. Automatic renewal. The thing I'd barely glanced at years ago. Not an accident. A feature. Elaine's hand went to her mouth. You said it was temporary, she said to him. Robert didn't look at her. It was, he said, until it wasn't. The room tilted, not physically, but in the way conversations do when they stop following rules. Someone asked if this meant the bills wouldn't get paid. Someone else asked if I planned to cut everyone off completely. So this is about punishment now, my aunt said. This is about consent, I said. That's a big word, she replied, for family. Robert pushed himself up from the couch with effort, as if the air had thickened around him. "I did what I had to," he said. "Any father would." Elaine stayed silent. My brother took a step back, then another, like proximity itself was risky. Maya waited outside, leaning against her car. She didn't ask what happened when I came out. She just looked at my face and opened the passenger door. "They're not hearing you," she said once we were moving. "They heard," I said. "They chose." She nodded. "This isn't a misunderstanding," she said. "It's a system." The house disappeared in the rearview mirror. Morning came without negotiation. Light slid through the blinds and landed on the table where nothing had been cleared the night before. Bank statements stayed spread out, corners weighted by a mug that had gone cold. Emails were printed and stacked, some clipped, some not. The authorization form sat on top like it had earned the position. Coffee brewed while the laptop woke up. The apartment was still, but not empty. Everything that mattered was already on the table. Silence had always felt productive. It kept things moving. It avoided scenes. It made space for other people to settle down. That belief had followed me into paperwork, into signatures, into the kind of trust that doesn't ask follow-up questions. The form on the table didn't care about intentions. It cared about ink. Robert had never needed permission in the way I thought he did. He needed access, and he needed me not to interfere. The system worked because it was allowed to. Every month it ran exactly as designed. The laptop chimed as emails synced. A message from Maya sat at the top of the inbox, time-stamped early. "Got something you should see." An attachment followed, forwarded, short note above it. "Friend in accounting, asked me if this sounded familiar." The email below was dated months back, sent from Robert to someone I didn't know. "Hypothetically," it began, "what's the cleanest way to move money when you have authorization from a family member? Looking to avoid unnecessary conflict." No drama, no emergency, just planning. The realization didn't feel sharp. It felt complete. Not betrayal. Structure. Maya called while I was still looking at the screen. "You got it?" she asked. "Yes." "That email matters," she said. "It shows intent. It shows homework." Exactly. The table looked less chaotic once everything had a place. Statements in order, emails grouped, notes in the margins where things connected. This wasn't about being right anymore. It was about being precise. "I'm not doing another family meeting," I said. "Good," Maya replied. "Those never come with minutes." The plan narrowed. Bank, lawyer. One room with neutral chairs and rules about interruptions. No raised voices. No rewriting history out loud. "You know what they'll say," Maya said. "They already did. They'll say you're heartless. They already do." She paused on the line. "They'll say you're suing your father. I'm documenting him." That mattered. The difference wasn't emotional. It was procedural. A notification popped up as we talked. Another message from Elaine. "We're all exhausted. Please stop escalate this." The word escalate landed flat. Everything so far had been maintenance. What came next would be deliberate. The cost showed up clearly once it was named. People wouldn't argue about facts. They'd argue about roles. The story would become about loyalty, not access, about gratitude, not consent. "You okay with that?" Maya asked. "With what? Being the bad guy?" The envelope waited on the counter, thick and unsealed. I slid the authorization form inside first, then the statements, then the email. The weight changed once everything was together. "I'm okay being accurate," I said. Maya exhaled once, slow. "Then you're ready," she said. The call ended. The coffee was gone. Shoes went on. Keys landed in the envelope for a moment, then moved back to the hook. One thing at a time. The bank's name went on the corner in block letters. Not dramatic, legible. The law office sat above a dry cleaner. Second floor, no sign beyond a name taped to the glass door. Inside, the conference room held a table, 4 chairs, and nothing else. No art, no plants, just a legal pad placed neatly in front of each seat. The lawyer flipped through the folder without commentary. Pages turned, notes were made. The sound of paper moving felt louder than it should have. "This isn't isolated," she said finally. The pen stopped in her hand. "Your father approached at least 2 other relatives about access," she continued. Both declined. One mentioned it later, after the bank contacted them during routine checks. That landed differently than the numbers ever had. "So this wasn't a one-time thing," I said. "No," she replied. "It looks patterned." She tapped the authorization form once. "Temporary hardship doesn't usually come with contingency planning," she said. "This does." The explanation didn't drift into theory. It stayed practical. Robert hadn't been reacting to a crisis. He'd been building redundancy. If one account closed, another might open. If one person said no, someone else might not. The lawyer slid a page across the table. "This email," she said, "the wording matters. He wasn't asking if it was legal. He was asking how to do it cleanly." Cleanly. No alarms, no scenes. The phrase from dinner surfaced without being invited. "You're not even family." It hadn't been said in anger. It had been said to reset the board, remove obligation, create distance. Once I wasn't family, I was a resource. Once I was a resource, withdrawal required no apology. "He needed you out of the moral equation," the lawyer said, almost casually. "That sentence did that," I replied. She nodded once. "About the withdrawal," she added, "that timing wasn't panic, it was preemptive. Before the authorization could be challenged, before anyone else noticed, before leverage disappeared." The phone vibrated on the table between us. Unknown number. "It's him," I said. The lawyer didn't ask me to answer. "He's filed a complaint," she said, checking her screen, "alleging financial coercion." Of course he had. What does that mean? It means the bank has to pause activity while they review both claims. As if summoned by the sentence, a notification flashed. "Account access restricted pending investigation." The lawyer watched my face carefully. "You're not reacting," she said. "There's nothing to react to," I replied. "This was always an option." She made a note. "This slows things down," she continued. "Right now, he looks like the vulnerable party. Elder, fixed income, distressed. And I look like?" "Someone with documentation," she said. "Eventually." Eventually wasn't comforting. It was accurate. The next steps came out in a list. Written statements, formal request, a joint meeting with the bank, family present if required. "He'll try to control the room," she said. "He already does," I replied. Outside the office, the stairwell echoed faintly as we walked down. The afternoon heat pressed close. My phone buzzed again, then again, messages stacking without being read. Maya called before I reached the car. "They froze my account," I said. "Same here," she replied. "Just got the alert." She didn't sound surprised. "They're going to frame this as concern," she said. "They already are." A voicemail from Elaine came through as we talked, then another from Robert. Maya stayed on the line while I listened to neither. "This doesn't end fast," she said. "I know." She paused. "You still want to do the meeting?" "Yes." "Even if you're outnumbered?" "Especially then." The legal pad in my bag held a list now. Dates, times, amounts, statements said aloud and statements said in writing. Every moment lined up without commentary. The lawyer's words replayed, stripped of emphasis, patterned, preemptive, clean. At a red light, the phone buzzed again. Text from Robert this time. "We can still fix this if you stop pushing." No apology, no acknowledgement, just a request for compliance. The light changed. The car moved forward. By the time I pulled into my parking spot, the noise had settled into something manageable. Not silence, structure. Another message came through, this one from the lawyer. "I'm scheduling a formal meeting with the bank. Family attendance recommended." I typed back one word, confirmed. The conference room at the bank was smaller than expected. A long table, 6 chairs, a glass wall that didn't quite block the hallway outside. A bottle of water sat unopened in front of each seat, labels turned outward like they mattered. Robert arrived 10 minutes early. Elaine came in behind him, purse clutched to her chest. Their lawyer followed, already flipping through a thin folder. Mine nodded once and sat beside me without comment. The bank representative closed the door and took the seat at the head of the table. "Thank you all for coming," she said. "We're here to review concerns regarding account access and authorization." No one disagreed. I placed my folder on the table and slid it forward. No speech, no preface. "These are the statements," I said. "These are the emails," my lawyer added, setting down a second stack. "And this is the authorization form," I finished, with the renewal clause. Paper spread out in clean lines, dates aligned, highlighted sections faced upward. Robert leaned back and folded his arms. "This is being taken out of context," he said. "I was acting in good faith." The bank representative looked at him. "Please elaborate." "I did what was best for my family," Robert said. "There was an urgent situation, debts, health costs, things my daughter didn't need to worry about." Elaine nodded beside him. "She's always been sensitive about money," Elaine said. "It makes her reactive." I didn't respond. The documents stayed where they were. The lawyer across from me cleared her throat. "Mr. Thompson," she said, "can you explain why the withdrawal occurred immediately after my client initiated revocation?" Robert smiled thinly. "That's coincidence," he said. "I can't control timing." My lawyer slid one more page forward. "This is a forwarded email," she said, "from a licensed accountant, dated 3 months prior." The bank representative leaned in and read silently. Robert's smile faded. The email didn't accuse. It didn't speculate. It asked a question. "What's the cleanest way to move money when you have authorization from a family member?" The bank representative looked up. "Is this accurate?" she asked. Robert shifted in his chair. "I was asking hypothetically," he said. "For 3 months," she replied. She tapped another page. "These logs show repeated access checks on the account leading up to the withdrawal," she said, "including during business hours when no payment was scheduled." Robert's lawyer adjusted his glasses. "We object to the implication." "They're noted," the representative said. "Please continue." Robert leaned forward now, palms flat on the table. "This is family business," he said, "not fraud." The bank representative nodded once. "This doesn't fall under family misunderstanding," she said. The words weren't sharp. They were procedural. Elaine inhaled sharply. "So what happens now?" she asked. The representative stacked the papers neatly. "The authorization is revoked effective immediately," she said. "The account will remain under review pending internal investigation." Robert opened his mouth, then closed it. "We'll also be collecting access materials," she continued. A second employee entered the room and held out a small envelope. "Sir," he said to Robert, "your access card, please." Robert looked at Elaine, then at his lawyer. No one moved. "Dad," Elaine said softly. He reached into his wallet and handed over the card. The employee sealed it without ceremony. "This is outrageous," Robert said. "This is documented," the representative replied. Silence settled, thick but stable. My lawyer gathered the remaining papers. "We'll be in touch regarding next steps," she said. The meeting ended without a verdict. No raised voices, no final statements, just a shift in authority that everyone could feel. Robert stayed seated as the rest of us stood. His hands rested on the table, empty now. The chair across from him scraped slightly as Elaine moved away. In the hallway, my phone buzzed once, then again. I didn't check it. Behind me, the door opened. Robert's voice carried, lower than before. "You didn't have to do this." The bank representative answered him, not unkindly. "We did." The bank's letter arrived 3 days later. Not certified, just standard mail, folded cleanly, language stripped of drama. Authorization revoked. Access terminated. Review ongoing. I read it once, then slid it into the folder with everything else. Elaine called that evening. "I'm at the grocery store," she said. "They declined my card." No accusation, just information. There's cash in the drawer, I said. I know, she replied. I just forgot. She didn't ask me to fix it. She didn't apologize either. The call ended with the sound of a cart rolling forward. Word traveled fast once there was nothing left to argue about. People knew, not rumors, details. Who signed what, when the withdrawals happened, how close to the revocation they'd landed. Nobody defended Robert out loud anymore. I stopped by the house once to pick up mail that still hadn't been forwarded. Robert sat in the living room, hands folded the same way he'd held them during the meeting, eyes fixed on the muted television. Elaine moved around him, avoiding the couch like it might ask questions. Your father's tired, she said. I won't be long, I replied. Robert didn't look up. No greeting, no comment. The silence wasn't hostile. It was inconvenient. My brother waited by the hallway, keys in hand. Text me, he said. I will, I said. We didn't hug. That felt accurate. No one tried to talk me out of anything. No one asked me to come back for dinner. The space held. The accounts moved quickly once the freeze lifted. New numbers, new passwords, old permissions canceled one by one. A short list of people received updated information. The rest didn't. The family group chat stayed unread for a day before it disappeared entirely. No announcement, just gone. Elaine sent a message later. I'm figuring things out. I responded with a thumbs up and nothing else. Forgiveness didn't arrive with a speech. It showed up as restraint. I didn't pursue anything beyond what had already been set in motion. I didn't ask the bank to press further. I didn't forward the accountant's email to relatives who hadn't seen it yet. For my mother and my brother, the line stayed open. For Robert, it didn't. The folder on my laptop gained a name before it closed. Family Event, Austin. It felt practical, specific, easy to search. Maya noticed it during a video call. That's one way to label it, she said. I'm done pretending it was something else. She nodded. The spare key to my parents' house sat in the bottom of my bag for a week before I took it out. Metal worn smooth from years of use. I placed it on the entry table the next time I stopped by, right next to the mail I'd picked up. Elaine stood in the doorway. You don't have to, she said. I know, I replied. Robert remained in the living room, still facing the television. The volume was low. A game played without commentary. The door closed behind me without resistance. At the apartment, the new lock clicked into place on the first turn. Shoes came off. Bag landed by the door. The folder went onto the desk where it belonged. A notification chimed. New account confirmation. Everything active. I set the old key on the table, flat, where it couldn't be mistaken for something temporary. The phone buzzed again. A message from my brother this time, asking about lunch later in the week. The reply sent without hesitation. The light from the hallway stayed on as I turned the deadbolt. One slow rotation, hand steady while the latch caught and held, the door sealing the room from everything that had needed permission before.